Has this ever happened to you, or is it just me? Have you ever been walking through an art gallery, you look at a painting, and you think to yourself, okay, but how does this differ from an illustration? Or maybe you're a creative beginner, and you're thinking to yourself, am I a fine artist, an illustrator, or can I be both? And the answer is actually more complicated than you might think, because the difference between fine art and illustration, it's not just skill, style, or if you hang in a museum. In this video, I'm going to break down the difference between fine art and illustration, how they communicate with audiences differently, and why understanding the distinction could actually help you find your creative voice. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're continuing the Versus series where I break down the differences between creative fields, how they overlap, and also what makes them unique. And today's topic is actually a very fun one because it's the difference between fine art and illustration. This is something that has been connected for over hundreds of years. They share many of the same tools. They both use things like drawing, painting, photography, digital media, color, composition, storytelling. Fine art and illustration could even create something that looks very similar. So what actually separates them? The biggest difference actually boils down to one simple question. Who is this artwork communicating for? So let's start with fine art. Fine art is usually a form of creating for personal expression. The artist's main goal, it's usually to explore an idea, emotion, experience, or perspective. The piece of artwork exists because the artist has something that they want to communicate. And that, by no means, makes fine art meaningless or random. Actually, many famous artworks are deeply intentional. A fine artist might be exploring things like identity or politics, human relationships to nature, memories, and sometimes deeply personal experiences. The artwork is often asking the viewer to interpret and think. The artist creates the question, whereas the viewer, they create the answer. For example, when you're looking at a painting in a gallery, you might end up thinking things like this. What does it mean? Why did the artist choose this color? What type of emotion are they trying to create? The viewer's interpretation becomes part of the experience. Fine art, it usually leaves room for ambiguity. It doesn't really need to explain itself immediately. And that's because the purpose isn't really to deliver a very specific message. The purpose is to create an experience. So then let's talk about illustration. Illustration is also storytelling, but the purpose is very different. Illustration is typically created to support a message or an idea. An illustration is often communicating something on behalf of someone else. That could be for things like a writer, a brand, a company, or a client. For example, the illustration in a children's book, it's what brings it to life. A medical illustrator, it's explaining something visually. An editorial illustrator is communicating an article's message. A packaging illustrator is helping a product stand out on a shelf. The illustration, it usually has a job to do, much like graphic design. It needs to communicate something clearly. A successful illustration, it's not only visually beautiful, it needs to solve a problem. It has to help the audience feel, remember, or understand something. And that is why illustration is often closely connected to design, because much like graphic design, illustration is also visual communication. So if we had to simplify everything into one idea, fine art is usually communicating for the artist, where illustration, it's often driven by the audience's understanding. A fine artist will ask, what do I want to express? Whereas an illustrator will ask, what do I want the audience to understand? And again, like what I say in all these videos, one isn't better than the other. They are both there to solve different problems. A painter creating a series about grief isn't there to sell a product. An illustrator for a children's book, the goal isn't to create confusion. Both are valuable. They just have different goals. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, I've seen illustrations displayed in galleries. Or maybe, hold up, I've seen fine artists create work for brands. And you're right, the line between these fields are much blurrier than people realize. But honestly, that's where things get interesting. Historically, the line between art and commercial work has overlapped. Many artists, all throughout history, have created commissioned work. Portrait painters were essentially hired by wealthy families to create images. Many famous artists design posters. And today, many creators move between both worlds. An illustrator might create personal paintings. A fine artist, they might collaborate with brands. A designer might make gallery-worthy artwork. That's what I love about creativity. Creative fields are not boxes. You can think of it more like a spectrum. Okay, for a minute, let's imagine that we have two artists creating a painting of a woman surrounded by flowers. A fine artist might create it because it's a piece exploring femininity. The meaning comes from the artist's experience. Now, let's say that an illustrator is creating the same image. Maybe it's for a skincare brand. The flowers, they could represent natural ingredients. And if that's the case, then the colors will match the brand identity. The image exists to communicate the feeling of the product. The visual language might look similar, but the purpose changes everything. Now, if you're someone learning about art, you might think to yourself, okay, but which one should I focus on? And my answer is that you don't actually have to choose. Understanding the differences isn't about putting yourself in one category. It's about understanding your goals. If you love to create artwork because you like exploring your own ideas and emotions, that's wonderful. Fine art might be the direction for you. Or if you like creating images that tell stories and explore ideas, or working with clients, then illustration might be the path. Or you might discover that you love both. Many creative people do. The important part is understanding why you're creating, because the same skill could be used in completely different ways. A person who knows how to draw beautifully can create a personal painting, a book illustration, a character design, or even if it's a brand campaign. My point is that the skill is only the foundation, and the purpose, it gives you a sense of direction. And as a graphic designer, I feel like knowing the distinction between all of these is important because fine arts, illustration, and graphic design, we all borrow from each other. Design, it uses artistic principles like color, composition, and storytelling. Illustration uses design principles to communicate clearly. Fine artists use visual systems to create meaning. Creative work is not separated by walls. It's more like a little neighborhood where we all borrow from each other. But understanding the difference helps you understand the role that you play. Are you expressing? Are you communicating? Are you solving a problem? Those are questions that could guide your creative decisions. So the next time that you see a beautiful image, don't only ask yourself, is this art or an illustration? Try asking what this image is trying to do. Is it inviting you to interpret, or is it helping you understand? Is it telling a story, or is it selling an idea? Because the difference between fine art and illustration isn't just about how it looks. It's more like, what is the reason that this exists? And honestly, that makes creative work so exciting. There are so many different ways to communicate visually. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the rest of my Verses series. And don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe for more just like this because I create videos every single week. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye!